These Justice Department officials, and we now know, apparently, White House counsel Pat Cipollone and his deputy as well, all threatening to resign in this circumstance, definitely makes them the stars of their own movies here, right? Makes them seem like they really saved us. Here's the problem. Here's the problem, not just for them being, cast as heroes in their own telling of the movie. Here's the problem for the U.S. Justice Department on its own terms and today. Here's the problem that has just landed in Attorney General Merrick Garland's lap. The problem is that before, in the end, they finally all offered to quit to stop this plot. Before they did that, a bunch of them helped in the plot. They didn't just passively observe that this is what Trump wanted and this is what Trump was pursuing and this is how Trump wanted to use the U.S. Justice Department. They helped him use the Justice Department to advance this plot up to a point. Richard Donahue, the Deputy Attorney General, telling Trump, it'll be bad for you, it'll be bad for the country, we'll all quit. Yeah, he looks like a great star of the movie at that point. Well, before that, we know he took Trump's bat bleep theories about voter fraud, stealing the election from him in multiple states. And he sent those Trump bananagrams to the U.S. attorneys in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. He, as the Deputy Attorney General of the United States Justice Department, told U.S. attorneys in Michigan and Pennsylvania that they should use Justice Department resources to go check that out, to go try to substantiate these nonsense claims that were coming from the White House. Now, to be clear, these claims about voter fraud in Michigan and Pennsylvania, these didn't bubble up from local law enforcement efforts in Michigan and Pennsylvania, and that's how they got to the U.S. attorney's offices there. No. These U.S. attorneys got calls from Main Justice in D.C., from the number 2 official in the United States Department of Justice, the Trump-appointed Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue, in his official capacity, telling U.S. attorneys in those states to pursue these made-up claims that President Trump was using to cast out on the election. And yes, in the end, he threatened to quit if Trump went ahead with this one crazy scheme involving Jeff Clark and the letter to Georgia, sure. But leading up to that, he helped Trump use the Justice Department and federal prosecutors' offices to pursue these claims. And it wasn't just Donahue. Today, we have learned that former Attorney General William Barr, who has received all this positive attention for his public assertions that there wasn't any significant fraud in the election. Great, glad you said it. But what did he actually do when he was in office as Attorney General? He personally weighed in and, in fact, told at least one U.S. attorney that he needed to investigate. That Attorney General William Barr had information that he needed to investigate. He got it from Rudy Giuliani. And that U.S. attorney should make it a top priority to go investigate Rudy Giuliani's made-up bananagrams, bat bleep claims about voter fraud. These same claims that Trump was using at that moment to try to get the election overthrown. Barr did it too. It's not normal for the Attorney General of the United States to call a random federal prosecutor to tell him personally and directly, here's what you're going to investigate now. Make it your top priority. I'm giving you these allegations that I want to become your first priority as an investigator. You're the federal prosecutor, do this for me. That's what Bill Barr did to B.J. Peck with Rudy Giuliani's made-up allegations about voter fraud in Georgia. And Peck said, yes, sir, you're the Attorney General. You want me to make him my first priority? Of course I will. So he uses the resources of his office to go start investigating those things. Peck goes on to say that as far as he knew, the division at Main Justice that actually handles election-related crimes thought that this Giuliani stuff in Georgia was not a substantive matter and therefore should not be investigated by the Justice Department. But Bill Barr apparently overruled that concern at Main Justice and said, no, I'm telling you personally to do it anyway. I'm telling you personally as Attorney General directly on the phone that I need you to look into this as your top priority, and then I'm going to go to the White House with it. So one of these surprise revelations in this report just released today by the Senate Judiciary Committee. Again, what they are investigating is what was the Justice Department's role in Trump trying to seize power, trying to stay in power even though he lost the election. One of the surprise revelations here is that the committee, based on what it's found already, they've asked the D.C. Bar to open a disciplinary investigation into the behavior of Jeff Clark. Given what he did as a lawyer, given what he did with his Justice Department role in that scheme with Trump. There's an interesting question, I think, as to whether or not what Jeff Clark did might be criminally prosecutable as well, but his law license may be on the line if the D.C. bar investigation doesn't go well. Whether or not there's a potential crime here, something for which he could potentially be prosecuted, the committee said today that it's not yet willing to pronounce judgment on criminal matters. But I feel like the thing that's sort of missing from the analysis of this today and all the revelations here is the disturbing facts, the now disturbing timeline we've got about other senior Justice Department officials, including Attorney General William Barr, using the powers of the Justice Department in an irregular, out of chain of command kind of way to get the Justice Department to bolster Trump's made-up claims about fraud. These made-up claims that he was using to try to stay in office. All the attention is on the fact that at the end of the day, senior Justice Department officials all said, we're not going that far. You're going to have to fire us or we're going to resign en masse if you go that far. But all along the way, all of this stuff fed from Rudy Giuliani and from the fever swamps and from the QAnon conspiracy theory Reddit groups or whatever else they are, wherever else they got this stuff, it flowed into the Trump White House. It flowed from the Trump White House to the Justice Department, and then senior Justice Department officials told federal prosecutors around the country, use the resources of your office to go chase this down. It's not the way the U.S. Justice Department is supposed to work. So now that we know the Justice Department did work that way under Trump, what's the Justice Department going to do about it? What does the Justice Department do with this new knowledge that its senior officials, up to the very highest levels of the department, Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, they tried to use the department to do those kinds of favors for Trump as Trump was trying to subvert the election results and stay in power. Once you, at a senior level of the Justice Department, use the powers of that department for that purpose, it can't be that you just get to leave and move on, and the next person who holds that job gets to what? Then try it again? What is the Justice Department going to do here? How does the Justice Department clean up after this mess? I don't know what's going to happen ultimately to Trump here. I don't know what's going to happen ultimately to Jeff Clark here. But what's the Justice Department going to do about the way it was used?